was no longer the confident woman that I knew to be before all of this happened. And on top of everything else, now hey now, how is everybody doing? Welcome to Alert Diaries with Tanya E. Hood. Today, I'm wondering if some of you have walked through an experience like I have. Because in the aftermath of my divorce, I lost who I was. When you lose elements of who you are at the core of your being, you will allow people, places, and things to define you, to label you, to give you your identity. When I chose to abdicate the throne of Tanya, I allowed the labels that people placed on me to define who I was. The label of wife, because there was a certain way that you were supposed to be as a wife. And apparently, I didn't do that one well because I found myself divorced. There was a certain type of woman you were supposed to be, just living life in general. But apparently, I wasn't that either because I no longer knew who I was at the core of my being in the aftermath of my divorce. I lost me. I lost the pieces of me that gave me confidence. I lost the pieces of me that I just knew would help me get clarity. I was no longer a wife. I was no longer the confident person that I knew to be before all of this happened. So how did I end up here? You see, when you forget who you are, people's preconceived notions will become the labels that you allow to define you. So I listened to the chatter that was told to me about me. You're not this, you're not that. Apparently, I wasn't smart enough, even though I had obtained an electrical engineering degree. Apparently, I wasn't pretty enough. Somewhere along the way, you thought I was pretty enough to marry me. But somehow, in the midst of all of these things, I didn't know who I was anymore. The battle that a lot of us face is often the battle that wages within. It's often you versus you. Who you are and who you want to be, or who you actually are and who you never allow the world to see, so they decide to label you what they would desire you to be, oftentimes for them. Or if you're anything like I have been, that strong will, confidence that you build up inside of yourself was because you wanted to prove to the world who you were at the core of your being, only to discover that all you had to do was be a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday. But a lot of us look at our past and allow our past to define us. And if you allow your past to define you instead of taking some time to discover you, you'll miss out on some things. So when you allow people to define you, then you go to battle with yourself over those definitions, what they perceive you to be. Can you truly be that person? What society says you should be, can you truly be that person? And along the way, you find yourself in the middle of your personalized war. This reminds me of a story that I heard years ago. There was a story about two wolves. One wolf, the good wolf. One wolf, the bad wolf. A grandson was asking his grandfather while he was telling him the story of the two wolves, "Well, Granddaddy, which of the wolves actually wins?" And the grandfather looked at his grandson and said, "The one that you feed is the one that will win." So if you allow the world to define you with the labels that they choose for you, and you feed into that, and you grow that element, that will eventually be who you are. Even if you are a heart-centered soul that wants to give, that wants to support, that wants to share who you are with the world, sometimes the world will make you think that if you give too much, then you're gullible. See, your heart-centered soul wants to give to those around you because it's a part of who you are at the core of your being. But if you find those moments where you have shared that part of who you are with the world, someone took advantage of it. And so now you cover it up. and you put on you the label that someone else decided to place on you. Instead of allowing yourself to be who you are, we have to define ourselves. And there's a technique that it took me a long time to finally decide to do. It's very simple, but it works so well. You've heard me share in a couple different areas that journaling is a key component that can help you get more clarity of you. Because when you choose to journal, it opens you up to your inner being. So while you have the inner part of you warring with one another of who you're going to be, how you're going to be, how you will truly function, journaling will help you get it out. Start by doing a few things if you need a little bit of assistance. One, I just started by journaling what I felt like that day. What did I do this day? Just writing out what you did can often give you some insight to tap into how you feel about it. And if you want to go deeper with that, then share. This activity made me feel this way. Seeing this person made me feel this way. Going to that place made me feel this way. When you take the time to explore the inner elements of your being, then it is there that you will gain more clarity about who you are. And the internal battle that you are constantly fighting, you won't have to keep waging as hard as you're waging. You see, when I decided to start listening to how Tanya felt about some things instead of what people around me said I should have felt about some things. You know those people, the ones in the aftermath of your divorce that says, you've been sitting around for way too long. You should get out and date. I'm not ready to date anybody. I'm barely able to stand being with myself, let alone with somebody I don't know. I've spent what felt like an eternity pouring my heart, my soul, and all of who I am into someone else, only for that to fall apart. And now you tell me that I need. No. There are moments you have to decide, even though someone else on their timetable chooses when you should feel a type of way, how you should function a type of way, when you choose to dig deep, to decide who you're going to feed, the version of you that they want you to be or the version of you that needs to sit in it. Because your big, beautiful heart needs time to heal. Because when you give, you give everything. You give all of who you are in every relationship, in every moment, in every element of what you do, and you should, because it is there that you operate in excellence. It's a natural part of who you are. But if you decide to allow the world to give you labels, to define you the way they want to define you, you will short circuit that. So journaling gives you a chance to say, I could do something different. I can get a little more clarity out of this moment. I can get a little more insight in this. And then you will discover that you can remember the past and decide not to live there. Take the time you need, the moments that you need to ensure that whatever that past experience is, be it living life after divorce, going through whatever that moment that took you out of your comfort zone, that put you in a place of things unknown, you will be able to take the time to get insight from you. Journaling did that for me, and it can do the same for you. When you take the time to discover who you are, asking yourself those questions about the roles that you have played, the responsibilities that you had, and say, who am I outside of these things? Because yes, I was a wife. And just because I was no longer a wife that he desired, it did not mean that I wasn't a wife, because at the soul of who I am, I know I'm designed to be one woman for one man. That is a marriage, which means I'm a wife. What I had to later discover is the definition that the world had about being a wife and the definition that I learned about being a wife didn't always align. But that label was now a defining moment that I chose, that I would be clear from the top of my head to the soles of my feet how I would function in it. When I was given the thought process about my confidence level. You see, I had defined my confidence level based off of how people saw me with the things that my heart chose to do for them. Because if I gave all I had for you and it made you feel good, that part made me feel good. And because you define that as me being the giver, because you define that as me doing all of whatever, I let that be the definition. So when I was no longer giving to you, when I was no longer supporting and helping and doing the thing that I naturally do, it wasn't labeled the same. So the label changed and I felt lost. But when I chose to write down, outside of being the entrepreneur, because in that there's a certain level of confidence because I give, I support, and I serve in that arena. But I also give, support, and serve as mama. I give, support, and serve as sister. I give, support, and serve as daughter. It's the same skill set. But because someone decided to label that only from a business perspective, if I lost my business, when I did, I lost my confidence too. Here's the thing that I discovered that a lot of us do about journaling and why we typically avoid it. We avoid it, a lot of us as divorcees, because it's in the sitting still by ourselves that requires us to journal. What do I experience? And you're not experiencing what you previously thought your world would be like. So your mind is warring over. This is not how this was supposed to be. So you avoid it because it makes you feel lonely. This is not how I thought things would go. This is not how I planned things to take place. So you avoid it to allow the heartache that your heart-centered soul often feels, and you do nothing. And you sit, maybe like I did, for days in your bed, doing nothing, allowing the nothing to overcome you and putting you deeper into a place that is more difficult to come out of. So I want you to pause there and journal. Journal the thoughts, journal the hurt, journal what you wish. When you start journaling what you perceive the future will be, you will stop warring within. That battle that you're fighting with yourself, that's not a battle that you got to keep fighting. You are better than that. You are bigger than that. And you fuel the one that you desire by giving credence to what you truly want next. I will no longer live in the darkness of my thoughts. I will no longer live in the darkness of my past. I will no longer be the labels that people have placed on me. You see, when I found a confidence, I found my confidence in one of my favorite books, In the Beginning. When I read in that book that God said, in the beginning, the very first line of the very first book, it says that God created. If God created, and that's the very first thing that we discover about him, and if you read a little bit further along, you learn that he designed us in his image. I had to go back and decide, in the beginning, what was Tanya supposed to be? And if I'm designing the image of the creator of the universe, his very first thing that he reveals about himself to us is a thing that resides in me. I'm creative because he created. I had to go back and see what else was there said about me in the beginning before the world told me I was not. In the beginning before I was deemed in my thought useless. In the beginning before everybody decided to put their labels on me. It was in the beginning that the journaling got deeper to discover what that was. Before I let the world define me, who was Tanya? She was giving. She was loving. She was supportive. And she still did those things. People labeled it under their preconceived notions to make them feel better about how they want to deal with me. But I still give, still support. Your heart-centered soul, that is your identity. So do not allow the world to put the labels on you that they want. You defined you. You defined your identity. And when you step into the middle of that, the confidence that you thought you lost will come back. The joy that you have been seeking everywhere else but in you, you will find. And so for today, if you don't remember anything else I've shared, here's the one thing I want you to know. At the core of your being, you know who you are. Take the time to identify that part of yourself so that you will no longer allow the labels to define you. And if there's anything that I've shared today that has resonated with you, then it's time to reset, like, comment, and share this information with others so that they can pour it into them the various things that I've poured into you. And if you want someone to join you on the journey, feel free to go to my website, TanyaEhood.com. There you can click on the Work With Me tab and see the various ways that we can work with one another. And if you are on YouTube, you can join me live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we can continue the conversation or we can start a new one. In the meantime, this is Tanya E. Hood walking in my purpose, and I want you to do the same.